On the night of April 5th, 1968, while 12 American cities were burning, James Brown walked onto the stage at Boston Garden. The mayor of Boston had called him that afternoon. He said, "If you go on tonight, people will stay home to watch. If you cancel, I don't know what happens to this city." James Brown said he would think about it. He thought about it for 4 minutes. Then he called back and said he would go on. Marcus Webb was 19 years old. He had bought the ticket 6 weeks before. A Friday night at Boston Garden. James Brown, the kind of show you saved up for and told everyone about. He had told his friends. He had told the girl he was hoping to impress. He had been looking forward to it the way 19-year-olds look forward to things that represent the version of their life they are building toward. On the afternoon of April 4th, 1968, Martin Luther King Jr. was shot on the balcony of the Lorraine Motel in Memphis, Tennessee. He died at 7:05 p.m. Marcus heard it on the radio in his mother's kitchen in Roxbury. He sat at the table for a long time without speaking. His mother told him he was not going to that concert. Marcus said he had already paid for the ticket. His mother said she did not care what he had paid. The city was going to burn tonight, she said. Stay inside. She had lived through enough. She was not going to worry about him on a night like this, on top of everything else. He stayed. The city did not burn. Not the way his mother feared. Not the way Detroit and Chicago and Washington, D.C. burned in the hours and days that followed. Boston was quieter than it had any reason to be. People stayed inside. People stayed in front of their televisions. One of the reasons, cited in the years since by people who study these things, was that James Brown was going on at Boston Garden and WGBH was broadcasting it live. Marcus watched it on television. He watched from his mother's living room, sitting on the floor in front of the set, his back against the couch, while his mother sat behind him and said very little. He knew what Boston Garden looked like from the inside. He knew how it smelled. He knew the sound of 15,000 people in that room. He watched it on a screen instead. James Joseph Brown, Jr. was born on May 3, 1933, in Barnwell, South Carolina. He grew up in Augusta, Georgia, poor in the specific way that poor in the rural South in the 1930s meant something that left marks that did not wash off in a single generation. He shined shoes. He danced for coins thrown by soldiers passing through town. He was arrested at 15 for stealing clothes from a parked car and sent to a juvenile reformatory in Toccoa, Georgia, where he met Bobby Bird, a friendship that would last decades, and a musical partnership that would produce something American music had not heard before. He began performing in the 1950s with the famous Flames. He worked the Chitlin circuit with an intensity that became, over years, a kind of mythology. He rehearsed his band with military precision. He fined musicians for wrong notes, for lateness, for any failure to meet the standard he was always raising. The standard was never fixed. He kept moving it. He was always chasing something slightly ahead of what he had just done. By 1963, the Live at the Apollo album, recorded without the label's enthusiasm, released against King Records' initial resistance, had established him as something more than regional. By 1965, Papa's Got a Brand New Bag and I Feel Good had crossed him into pop radio. By 1968, he was the hardest working man in show business in the precise sense that the phrase requires. He had done the work so many times and with such totality that the description had become inseparable from the person. He was also, by 1968, something more than an entertainer. He had become a figure, a symbol of something difficult to articulate but impossible to ignore. He had not made his career by making himself comfortable for anyone. He had made it by being, at all times and without compromise, himself. Completely, overwhelmingly, irrevocably himself. On April 4th, 1968, Martin Luther King Jr. was killed. James Brown's first instinct was to cancel the Boston concert, to go somewhere private, to stop. He was not a political figure in King's sense. He was not an activist in any formal way, but he understood what King had meant, because he was a black man living in the same country and paying the same kind of attention. The mayor's call changed the calculation. Kevin White was direct. Cancel, and Boston has no anchor tonight. Go on, and 15,000 people have somewhere to be and something to watch, and thousands more stay home in front of their televisions. He offered to make Brown whole on any revenue lost. He asked Brown to do something that was not a concert anymore, to do something larger than a concert, using the only thing Brown had, which was the ability to hold a room. James Brown said he would go on. He walked onto that stage in a city that was waiting to find out whether it was going to burn. He performed. He performed for hours, with everything he had, in the way he always performed, as if what happened in the room depended entirely on how much he gave it, because in his experience, it did. At one point, young men surged from the floor toward the stage. Security moved in. The situation tightened into something that, on that particular night, in that particular city, could have become something no one in the room would have been able to stop. James Brown held up his hand. He spoke into the microphone. He said, "I asked you to be with me tonight. I need you to be with me. Step back." He said it without panic and without the kind of authority that comes from a badge or a title. He said it with the authority of a man who had spent 20 years learning how to make a room listen to him, and who understood, in that specific moment, exactly what the room needed to hear. The crowd stepped back. He kept performing. The city stayed quiet. Marcus watched all of it from the living room floor. When it ended, he sat there for a while without moving. His mother had fallen asleep in the chair behind him. The television moved on to something else. He turned it off. He thought about the ticket still in his pocket. He thought about what he had seen. A man choosing, in the middle of his own grief, to go on. To use the thing he had, the only thing, in service of a night that needed something to hold it together. He kept the ticket. He kept it in a box with other things he could not bring himself to throw away. He did not display it. He did not explain it to many people. It was his record of a decision he had not made, but witnessed. A man going on when he did not have to. He is 75 years old now. He lives in Dorchester. His daughter, who teaches in the Boston public schools, asked him once what he remembered about the night King was killed. He told her about the ticket. He told her about the living room floor. He told her about the hand going up and the crowd stepping back. She asked, "Do you think it would have been different if he had canceled?" Marcus was quiet for a moment. He said, "I think some things only hold together because one person decides they will." That night, that person was James Brown. Boston did not burn on April 5, 1968. Researchers cite the broadcast. Historians note the crowd control. People who were there have their own reasons, their own floors, their own televisions. Marcus Webb had a ticket he never used. He never asked for his money back. He never once thought about it as money. Subscribe to Untold Soul Legends. Every week, we find the moments behind the music that changed everything. Tell us in the comments which Soul Legends story you want to hear next. If this one stayed with you, share it with someone who needed to hear it today.